you go through 1992 and you win 3 races. 1993, Ernie wins again at Talladega. But then Davey Allison loses his life in a helicopter crash. How did you find out that Ernie was wanting to move over to Robert Yates?
Well, first off, after Davey crashed, we contacted the 28 now and offered any help that we might have since they'd lost their driver. And I didn't hear anything right then, but Jack Roush called me, and he said, I hear rumblings that through Ford that the 28 is after your driver. You know anything about that? I said, no, because Jack and I were pretty good buddies. And when we got to Bristol, I asked Ernie. And he said, yep, I'm going. I said, and you can't stop me. I said, what do you mean? I said, I got a 5-year contract. He said, 2 years remaining. He said, well, let me tell you something, Larry. Well, I got it figured. I'm in control of the stern wheel, the gas pedal, and the clutch pedal. You can't afford to keep me. And I'll show you. And he did.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, I was actually going to ask.
Yeah.
You went to Michigan, and the engine blows. You go to Bristol the next race, and the engine blows. And there was talk, and I was in the sport at that time, and I remember that there was talk that at least at Bristol, the engine might have been intentional.
Well, it blew 3 engines that weekend.
Wow.
Of course, we changed the engine pretty fast, and people didn't know it. At that time, you could qualify with 1 engine and race another engine, but it's 3 engines.
Was that the last straw? Was that where you said, okay, listen.
I've had enough.
Yeah, if you want to go, just go.
Yeah, that's it. And after that, he went to 28. After Bristol, if you look and see.
Yeah.
That's what happened. We were actually having a meeting with my attorney down here in Avenue, going over the contract with Ernie, and of course having that meeting, telling him we didn't want him to leave, and we had a contract, and the contract didn't mean anything to him. And of course, the 28, not 28 necessarily, but Texaco had a lot of money, and Ford had a lot of money, and Chevrolet wasn't that enthused. I guess maybe it keeping us, but with us having success like it, even before Bristol, I want to back up and tell you about that little story. Oldsmobile, we were sponsored by Oldsmobile when we had Rick. Well, at the end of that year, they told us they weren't going to sponsor us anymore.
At the end of 90?
At the end of 88.
Okay, all right.
Said, we can't give you the same deal you've had with Rick. I said, okay. Well, I didn't have anything else. So if I wanted to keep racing, I didn't want to change sheet metal at that time. But Chevrolet come, right after we got Rick, Chevrolet come to us and said, well, we'd love to have you run the Chevrolets. And we did.
Wow. All right. Was Sterling your first choice for 1994, or were there others that were in the mix?
You know, Ernie, not Ernie, but Runt had always liked him, and
had always liked Sterling.
And had worked with him some. And he liked the way he drove and that kind of thing. He liked his daddy, and he said, you know, he runs good. He runs fast. He never has won, but he runs good. I said, maybe somebody we need to look at. And he was probably the best driver that we focused on. I called Chevrolet and told them I was going to hire him. And they said, well, we're not going to support that. And I said, well, he's been with one of the best race teams for 3 years, and he hadn't won for junior. We said, well, we're still going to we still want to do that, and we did it. So, and Magic, he won his first races.
Yeah, he did. The week going into the Daytona 500 in 1994 was pretty tough after we lost Neil Bonnet and Rodney Orr. What was the mindset of the team going into the 94 Daytona 500?
As far as were we going to be cautious?
Yeah.
Well, we weren't a very cautious bunch, and listen, with that Lumina, we had spent a lot of time in the wind tunnel, and we knew our motors were pretty good, if not the best. And going into that, we knew Ernie was going to be hard to beat because he was driving that 28 car, and 28 car is pretty sporty on the speedway. So, and ironically, it came down to the last lap when we passed Ernie. I think going into 3 or coming off 4 or something, we got him loose and we went on past him and won the race. But we had confidence. I mean, it wasn't our team never did have. You couldn't say we had a lack of confidence after we had Ernie and Sterling and that bunch. But we were pretty confident that we could finish good. We didn't know if we could win or not, and then God let us win that race.
After everything that had gone on the year before with Ernie, what did it mean to you personally to win the 1994 Daytona 500?
Well, you can say, well, you shouldn't feel one way or the other. I mean, because he left us and then you beat him at the biggest race of the year. Probably it was a little satisfying to me because it wasn't a clean departure. I mean, there was some animosity between he and I.
Yeah.
Because I knew he had a contract and he knew he had a contract, and his sponsors knew he had a contract, and I almost tried to do something about it, but I decided not to. But it made us feel good that we won that race, and he just happened to be that other car after that. I mean, made us feel pretty good.
That being said, Ernie did get hurt at Michigan that August. Was there ever a point where you maybe reached out to him to maybe mend your fences a little bit?
Prior to that?
Prior to that or afterwards?
I never did speak to him after he left us.
Really?
Until he wrecked.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And then he was in Michigan. We went over to the hospital, but as you know, most of the teams did. But as far as doing anything prior to that, no. And of course, after he's been here, so we talk. Yeah.
Okay. Sterling won the Daytona 500 again in 1995, and you guys finished third in points. How much of a difference was there in working with Sterling and working with Ernie, personality-wise?
Sterling was more laid back. I mean, he was, I don't know, he was just easy to be around, a lot of fun to be around. We never did see Ernie we never saw Ernie. It was just business. We were dealing with Ernie. Of course, I'm sure he was staying busy doing PR and doing whatever he had to do with our sponsor and maybe his other sponsors he had. But it was a lot easier to work with Sterling. We could ask him to do something, and he'd work it out and do it for us. Winning 95 was a pretty good story about that. Right before when the racetrack opened up in 95, Bill France was sitting in his trailer like he always did. And the cars would go by initially. And that 4 car went by, and it had a different sound to it. And Bill's...
This is just his first lap. This thing just sounds fast, doesn't it?
It does sound fast. Sounds like it's got a turbocharger or something.
Yeah. There is high pitch much sound.
What in the hell have you done now? So, I'll tell you that it was the easiest race to win. Easiest race we won was '95 because everybody was beat. They was trying to figure out what we were doing, and whether it was the sound or whatever. But anyway, we enjoyed that win.
Well, what were you doing?
We had right before the season. Of course, we were dyno testing 24 hours a day. Had a guy call me from Salt Lake City. He said, "Larry, I've got a new exhaust system. I think it'll help you. 3 or 4 horsepower." So I worked out a deal with him that if I tried it and it helped, he wouldn't let anybody have it for a year because it was his exhaust system.
Right.
He agreed to it. His name was Dr. Gas, and he sent me that thing. We put it on 5 horsepower, bam, and it was an X pipe, and it made the car sound like an Indy car. And I don't know if it was the amount of horsepower we had or what, but a lot of the other cars tried it, and their cars didn't sound like ours did. But people, that race week, we had from these sports magazines, we had them laying down and long range cameras trying to see what we had under the car, but it was actually the exhaust system.
1995 was probably your best statistical season. You had 3 wins, had 9 top 5s, you had 22 top 10s, you were third in points. After the humble beginnings that you'd had, what was it like to walk through that garage every week with your chest poked out a little bit and walking tall a little bit? What was it like to be that competitive after being in the sport for so long?
Well, I don't think we were ever a team, and I personally was never somebody that thought there was something when they weren't, but I didn't. But it felt so good. It really felt good because we'd come from basically nothing.
Right.
I mean, really humble beginnings, as humble as you could get. And during that time, from that time to the time we ended up having success, a tremendous amount of people helped us. I can remember being in Charlotte, wrecking the car, blowing an engine, and going over to Kel Yarbur's shop, and their people help us fix the car and the motor and put it in race. I can remember loaning Rick Hendricks a motor to qualify with at Talladega. I mean, there's a lot of things happened during that time, but I don't think we had many enemies. I don't think so. Everybody loved Tony. Everybody liked GC. And we didn't do any people wrong that I know of, But being successful, it's a different feeling. And it's, maybe I should have given the good Lord more thanks for it when I was having all that success. Maybe I'd have had it up for a longer period, but it sure did feel good.
There was a pretty big drop-off in results between 1996 and 1997. No wins in 1997, just a couple of top 5s, and Sterling fell all the way to 25th in points. Was there anything in particular that took place or that was going on?
Sure. I'll tell you what pretty much happened. If you can look at the demise of our team during that period, Felix decided to get my crew chief. He got Tony. And then he ended up with Sterling. And just taking people away, taking things away from us. I mean, NASCAR took a tremendous amount of things away from us that we'd come up with. We had a scavenge pump running on the rear end house, and then we had lines running everywhere. But it was several horsepower. I mean, we were always trying to be ingenious. But I think at about that time, along in there, people started taking advantage of having multi-car teams and having more engineering and having more money. Listen, if you got the most money, it's just like this sport today. If you got the most money, you can buy the best driver, you can buy the best people, and more than likely you're going to have more luck than somebody that can't do that. And I think that's maybe what happened to us. But when Tony left us, that was a big punch in the gut, and I couldn't replace him. I didn't replace him, so that's kind of what happened.
You won with Bobby Hamilton at Martinsville in the spring of 1998, and that turned out to be your last win as a team owner. Were you still pretty confident that you were going to be able to continue to be competitive, or did you get the sense that maybe the writing was on the wall, that things weren't headed the way that you wanted them to?
Well, I probably wish it had hit me a little harder in the head, that I could see that we weren't going to have much success. But we started going to speedway races, and maybe I had the two best drivers for speedway, and lost both of them with Sterling and Ernie. Bobby was a good speedway racer, and we were competitive with him, but we just didn't have what it took. If I'd have been smarter, even down the road, if I'd have been smarter and could say, "Hey, I'm a single car team," I think I should have gone to Hendricks or somebody and rented engines. I could have cut my expenses quite a bit by doing that, but being hard-headed a little bit, and you'd like to have your own motor in your car when you win a race, or I did at that time. It meant something to me. If I'd have been a little smarter, though, I'd have probably outsourced some of these things, some engineering. You look at the teams now, they outsource pit crews, engines, cars, everything. Yeah. So I should have been a little smarter, but being up here, single car team, that was probably a disadvantage for us.
Your last several years in the sport, Kodak went away, and there were several drivers who saw time in your cars. How difficult was that for you personally, after having been on the mountaintop? What was it like to experience that?
Well, it felt to me the same as it's felt to a lot of people. That hind end bumping down those steps, coming down that mountain top, after being up there, it really hurt. If I'd have been a little smarter, I thought we might could have carried on. But it got more difficult to make races. We had no engineering support. We had 2 or 3 engineers here, but we just didn't. Listen, we were fighting big odds, more odds than we were when we started out racing. It was harder, and I'm sure these people are finding that same thing out right now.
How would you like for Morgan McClure Motorsports to be remembered? What's its legacy in the sport?
Oh, Lord. I thought we were a good, honest bunch of people who worked hard, had to work harder and smarter in order to win. I guess that's it. We got, like I say, I wish I'd have given the good Lord more praise and glory for our success, but I didn't at that time, and I should have. A lot of things you'd like to have a do-over.
Yeah.
But I don't. I guess just being a good, honest race team. They worked hard, and I think when we were successful, we worked harder and were smarter than the other people. Just like multi-car teams, for years they fought each other instead of working together and making themselves stronger, and then all of a sudden they get smart enough to be able to do that. But I don't know. I think we were we were probably a race team that when we were racing and we went to a speedway race, you had to contend with the number 4 car.
Larry, I don't know how to answer this question, but you did experience some things in the mid 2000s, and you had some legal issues, and it cost you personally. How difficult was it to go through that, and how did you get through it to come out the other side and be the person that you are today?
Well, I think everybody does things wrong, and I don't know. You know, I went through a period of time when I went to jail, but I can tell you this: I made it through that period of time because I had faith. I never one time. Not one, I'm telling you, not one time in 15 months did I ever worry about my wife or my family or my businesses, anything like that. I didn't. I turned it over to the good Lord and I said, I need help. I can't do it because I'm going to wreck. And I have wrecked. So it makes me, after going through that, it makes you look at everything different. All your priorities change. What was important to you one time is not anymore. Having things don't really make any difference to me. I hate that I had to put my family through that. But let me tell you, anybody can do it, and anybody that's in business can be in that same position. Like I say, I've admitted that I made mistakes. I've had to admit some things I didn't do, but still, at the same time, I felt like the strategy we used was the best for us. And at the end of the day, my wife and my family relationship with my whole family and most of my friends is stronger now than it was before. So I didn't mind it in a way. It's something you have to do, but or I had to do, but I got through it fine, and I think can look at things, and I'm a better person now than I was before because it's a wake up call.
Yeah.
You know, it's a bong on the head, and it happened. So, and like I said, I'm sorry for the probably being recognized in the sport of Winston Cup racing or NASCAR. We would probably get more recognition now had that not happened to me. Now, I don't know how people look at it, but I think that's probably because I haven't talked to any of those folks ever. You know, I had, but anyway, we won 14 races. Nobody can't take that away from us. I'm proud of the people that worked on those race cars. I thank the Lord for us having that success, and I wouldn't change nothing.